Today we're going to create a simple HTML website that uses Mustache and PHP to get the data and create a view for the data all in one place. Simple to use, easy to learn. Let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back to a new episode of DevDrawer. Today we're going to be going over how to create a dynamic website using Mustache. In the past, I had showed you how to create a dynamic website using hash or page routing using vanilla JavaScript. So this time I'm actually going to be using a PHP version of Mustache framework in order to create a dynamic system that allows you to add template tags inside of your HTML, keep everything kind of separate. So basically keeping your data separate from your view layers. But it's still the same concept where you have a view layer, which would be your HTML pages. You have your routing system, your templating system, which is Mustache in this case, and then you have the framework that kind of puts it all together. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to open up my terminal in VS Code, and we're going to use Composer to require Mustache. And you may have seen other tutorials that use Mustache. Essentially, you can use Mustache for PHP, JavaScript, Ruby, Node. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different uses for it. Essentially, it's just it's a bracketing system that allows you to implement content into your HTML without having to dynamically create that content in code. You can pull it out of a database. You could hard code it, but you can pull it out of a database. And it just basically allows you to create a standardized template, use partials and stuff like this. So Mustache is very versatile, and that's how you install it. So Composer require Mustache, and then now we have our vendor folder here where it's loading in Mustache. So I'm going to show you some basic functionality of it. So let's create an index.php. And while that is running, I'm going to go ahead and I have my live server running on port 50067. So I'm going to go over here to this live server extension, and it's currently using the proxy, but I want to actually run this in PHP. So we're going to spin up a PHP server real quick. So let's do PHP -s, and then we just want it to run on localhost, let's say 8000. Okay, so now we have this localhost server started, but I want to tie my live server into this localhost. So we're going to come back to our live server extension, and we're going to change this to localhost 8000 and apply. So now let's give it a refresh, and over here let's just say hi. Once we save it, it should update. Okay, so now we have our local PHP server is interacting with our live server settings inside of VS Code. All right, so let's go ahead and start. What I want to do is have where all of the routes run through this index.php page. So in order to do that, we need to create our htaccess file. And inside of this, we're going to do if module mod rewrite. So it's basically going to make sure that your server can handle mod rewrite. If it can, then we want to do options plus follow symbolic, no space, follow symbolic links, so sim links. And then we want to turn the rewrite engine on. And let's do a rewrite, condition, and we're going to do %request file name, and then we're going to do another rewrite condition %, and this is going to help us remove the PHP off of it, and we're going to redirect it in just a second. So request file name again, and we're going to do D. And then finally the rewrite rule. So rewrite, let's see, rewrite rule is going to be everything is going to be rerouted through index.php, and we want that to be the last thing that it does. Okay, so now if we type in about, it should still show us the blank page, and if we come over here and add hi over here, it'll show hi here. So basically we have our everything's being rerouted through this page, and it's showing whatever's on the index.php. So in order to accomplish the mustache templating, we're going to have to get the contents of certain files. So let's create a new folder, and we're going to call it views. And then let's go ahead and create a new folder for controllers. And I've done a lot of this stuff in some of my other tutorials. So if you're curious about how some of the things that I'm doing is working the way that they are, I have plenty of videos that detail what I'm doing. One video would be how to create your own Autoload PHP. Your Autoload PHP is essentially, it kind of acts the same way as if, like the vendor Autoloader, but we're doing it for our own classes. So we're going to do function Autoload a dynamic class, and then we're going to do include controllers slash, and I did an entire video on how to implement this. So just don't be worried to check out the other videos if you're confused as to what this does and why it's here. And we're going to do SPL Autoloader register, or Autoload register, and then we're going to register our Autoload. So now any controllers that we, or any classes that we create inside of this controllers folder should get auto-loaded. So let's go back to our index.php, and we're going to start working on it to make it where it starts pulling in the Mustache class and any classes that we have. So first thing, let's do require once, and we're going to do vendor Autoload, which will load in the Mustache code. And then we're going to do a require once, and we're going to load in our Autoload. All right, so now we have it, let's see, required once Autoload, there we go. So now we have it loading that in. So let's go ahead and start our Mustache. So we're going to do Mustache Autoloader, and then we're going to use the function register. Okay, there we go. So now we have our Mustache function is being added. It's not Autoload, Autoloader register. Okay, so now the class functionality of it is being added to our application. So inside of this controllers, I'm going to create a new file, and we're going to call this templates. Templates.php. Okay, so let's go ahead and start this. We're going to call it PHP class templates, and then let's do a private that'll be our Mustache, and let's do a public function construct. And inside of this function, we're going to do this equals new backslash mustache underscore engine. Now, normally you could stop it here and then just run the mustache engine, but I also want to add in some views for some partials, which would be like the header, the footer, stuff that's on every single page. So in order to do that, we need to tie our Mustache engine. We need to make sure that it is aware that we have a partials folder. So we're going to do partials loader. Let me minimize that so you can see a little better. So we're going to do partials loader equals new. So new Mustache loader file system loader. And then we are going to pass views partials. And we actually don't need the slash here. And let's end that. No, comma. All right, what am I doing here? Oh, it needs to be in an array. That's why I wasn't looking for the comma. Okay, so now we're able to load a partials file, which if you're doing a partial, because it is Mustache, it has to have the extension Mustache, but all of your other views can do index, Mustache, or I'm not sorry, .php, .html, .mustache. So your file extension needs to, in the partials folder, reflect Mustache because you're essentially loading a Mustache template, whereas the other files can be whatever extension that you want them to be, as long as they're formatted where it could be read as HTML. Okay, so now we have our main thing here. So I'm going to create another class in here. So let's do a new file. We're going to call it nav.php. So inside of our nav.php, we're going to create two functions. So let's do class nav, and the first is going to be a public function, and we're going to call it header, and then we're going to do public function footer. And inside of this, we're going to pass in some data, and we'll come back to that in just a moment. So let's go ahead and finish creating out some of the functions that we need here. See if I can close out of that. So what we want to do is create another public function called render, and this render is going to be passing in a template and data. This data is going to be whatever content is going to be coming on the page. So inside of this function, we're going to create a variable called template, and then we're going to use the @ symbol because we don't want it to render any warnings if it can't find the template. We're just going to make it where it displays a 404. So we're going to do file get contents, and inside of our views folder, we're going to do views dot template because we're going to be passing in the name of the file view through this template. And then we're just going to do .html for ours. Okay, so now we're grabbing the template. So now let's do if template equals false. Let's make that a hard false. So if template equals false, the new template is going to become file get contents, and this is going to be views 404.html. So that'll get us the 404 if the template is not found. If it is found, then it's just going to grab the template from there, and we're going to return this m, which is our Mustache variable, render, and then we're going to render that template and the data that is presented with it. Okay, so that should be enough to get kind of the ball going. So let's create a new file, and let's call it index.html. And inside of this index.html, I'm going to show you, actually not, instead of index.html, let's call this home so it's a little bit more standardized. So let's do HTML5 just to grab everything out of there. Let's do, for the document title, we just do 2 mustache or curly brackets, and then we're going to do content.title, which would be part of our data. So let's come in here and do, let's create a main, and then inside of this, let's just do h1, and again, we're just going to do content.heading. So we'll have, in our data that's being passed, we'll have content title, content heading. So refreshing this isn't doing anything because obviously it's not grabbing that page. So we need to go back to our main index file, and we need to run some code. So let's do templates equal new templates, because our autoloader is pulling it in automatically, so we shouldn't need to do any kind of PHP to say include or require or anything like that. It's all being done by the autoloader that we created. And as you can see over here, it's creating an error because it's saying that the views partials does not exist. So let's go ahead and create that folder. So new folder, partials. We don't have to put anything in it yet. We just want to get rid of that error. Okay, so now let's say we're going to do a page is going to be equal to templates, and we're going to create a new function. It's going to be called get page URL, because what we want it to do is grab this the URL at the end of our domain, and we want it to pass it to this page. So let's go ahead and create a new function. So we're going to do public function get page URL, which is just going to be standard PHP code, and it's basically just going to return an array, or I guess an object from the server request URI. So let's do URL equals explode, and we're going to explode it with a question mark. Why am I doing it with a question mark? Let's see how that works. It's not what I was expecting to put in there, but it's in my test code. Okay. All right. So now we have our URL. So we want to return if the URL at the 0 spot is equal to /, we want it to return /home. Otherwise, we want it to return the URL. Okay, so now if we come over to here and we do echo page, we should see it says home. If we do the about, now it says about, so forth and so on for whatever page. So it's kind of like this is utilizing the htaccess that we did earlier. Now we just got to get it to actually display the content that we want it to display. So let's go back over here, and now let's do data equals templates data, and then we're going to pass in that page that it's grabbing. So this function doesn't exist, so let's go down here and create it. And for this part of it, I'm going to hard code it in, but you could take this part and actually pull it from a database, or pull it from wherever you want to pull it from. So I'm just going to use a simple switch statement that's going to be based on the page, and we're going to do, if the case is home, we want it to do this action. So data, and I believe in here we're calling it content. So let's do data content, and we're going to pass it all as an array. So inside of this, we want to pass the title, which for this one we'll just call it home. Let me minimize this again so you can see, because it's going to get kind of long. Heading, we just want to say welcome to the home page. And then finally, let's add in some content inside of our content. I'm just going to just take some lorem ipsum and paste it in here. Okay. Okay, so now we have the data that's coming in for the home page. So let's do a break. So let's put up a default here as well. So let's say if it's case, or not case, but we want to do default. We want it to do the same thing. So I'm going to copy this, but instead of passing all the content as it is, we are going to pass it as the 404 information. So let's do 404 here. Let's do page not found, and then we can keep the lorem ipsum. Actually, let's change it. So let's keep the lorem ipsum, or change the lorem ipsum to this page cannot be found. Please try again. Okay, so now we need to pass our page because that is part of the database variable. Okay, so now we are running the data. We're grabbing the data for this page here. All the other pages will have to go in there and dynamically put them in. So let's create a new function, and we're going to do echo templates render, and then we're going to be passing in the page, and we're going to be passing in the data. So the function's already there. It's right here. So now it should be able to grab that template. So if we come over here and we do echo template, it's trying to get home slash home. So, oh, that is because, no. Why is it not rendering the data? Oh, that's because we don't have any. Oh, we do have something inside of it. Okay. Okay, so we're supposed to be grabbing the content there. So let's look. We got our render. It's grabbing the HTML. So the slash home should be here. Let's go down, and it should be displaying this content. Oh, okay. Well, that's because we did not return it. So return data. There we go. All right, so now it says welcome to the home page. Let's get the content in here as well. So I'm gonna do content.content, and you don't necessarily need to have the spaces in between the back and the front of it because that's just, I do it so I can keep it a little bit clearer as I'm working on it. Okay, so now we have our home HTML. So let's say we want to utilize this nav that we've created up here. So let's come down here and do this nav equals new nav. And let's create another variable here. So this is going to be a private variable again, nav. And then inside of our nav, I closed out of it. Inside of our nav, let's go ahead and just create an array inside of here. So let's do header equals an array, and we're going to have links, which is going to be equal to another array, not links. So inside of this array, we're going to have URL, and let's make the URL equal to slash name. It's going to be equal to, I guess we can just do home. Okay, why is it not liking this? That's because it's not supposed to be equal. There we go. Okay, so now we have this thing, so let's go ahead and return the header. Okay, I thought it was messing up for a second there. Just took a second to catch up. Okay, and let's go ahead and do the same thing for our footer. And you could just render both of them, but I'm actually going to make it to show you that you can render different. Okay, so inside of our home.html, we're going to use a partial. So we have our partials folder here. So if we want to use a partial, we do bracket bracket and then footer for the footer and header for the header. So I don't think we have anything in there, so let's do new file header, and remember, if it's a partial, it has to be a mustache. So header mustache, and let's create a new file called footer mustache. Okay, so now we have our header and our footer mustache. So let's go to our header. Let's do header, and then inside of this, the nav that's coming to us is an array. So if we go back to our nav, you can see it's returning an array that's coming to us. And actually we need to, inside of our templates, we need to have, okay, we're already getting that. Never mind. Forget that I said anything. Okay, so we have this array of header that's being sent over, but it's not currently being added to our data. So what we're going to do here in our templates where we're gathering our data, we're going to create a data nav header. And this is going to be equal to this nav and header. Same thing for our footer. So let's take this one and this one. Change that to footer. Okay, so now if we want to see how that looks, we can come down here and do like a print our data, and it should contain our nav array, our header array, and then it has the information that we're using for the content, title, heading. So it's returning all of the data that we want it to. So now we should be able to access inside of our header. We can just loop through that array. And the way that you loop through an array is by adding a hash sign or a pound sign in front of it. And then we can do nav header. And then you have to close that loop. So now we have this nav header. So any of the items inside of that data that's being sent over to us inside of the nav header is it's available to us here. So let's do like a div class logo, and I'm just going to add in something here because I want to create a real-ish header. So we have a logo, and then let's do a UL. And then for each of these links, which again is another array, so we're going to do links, and then we're going to close out that links. And then inside of this, we're going to put a list item, a href, and the href is going to be the URL. And then this is the name, and that's how we set it up in the navigation here. We have URL name. And you can see here it's actually producing home. So if we add in another array here, so let's do like about. So now it should have an about. If we click on this, it's going to tell us that obviously the page doesn't exist, which should display a 404, but since I don't have a 404 here, let's add one. So rename, let's do 404 HTML. All right, so now it says, oops, page cannot be found, which is what we're looking for. Okay, so before I start creating the other pages, I also want to include a style sheet inside of this right under here. So I'm going to include a styles partial. That way, if I ever need to add any styles to it, I can. You can also add like a JavaScript in the footer. And then for our partials, we're going to create a new file called styles.mustache. And then inside of this, we're going to render out the style sheet that we want to do. So let's do link href equals CSS styles or style.min.css. Put a rel style sheet. Okay, so now if we view the source on this, you can see it's producing this style CSS min. Put a line underneath it so it moves it down. Okay. All right. So now let's create a style sheet so that we can actually reference it. So let's create a new folder, call it Sass. Inside of this, we're going to create a new file called style.scss. And then we have a Sass compiler built in, and I have settings, and I've done a video on how to make it where it's fixing to do what I'm going to show you it's going to do. But essentially mine is generating a CSS folder with a style and a style min, and then it's just pushing it out. So let's open up this, and I want to take this. I don't want it up there. Why is it up there? There we go. Right? Okay, there we go. All right, I just had to get it out of the way. It was taking up way too much space. Okay, so I'm gonna throw in some simple styling here. Don't worry about what it looks like. This isn't a front end thing at all for CSS. So I'm actually gonna pause the video while I put all this together, and then I'm going to rerun it and start recording again, just so you don't have to watch me type out a whole bunch of styles that don't really matter for you. Okay, so I created all this styles. It'll be inside of the document if you want to download it, but I basically just created something that aligns the navigation, puts a border around everything so you can kind of see how it separates everything out. So we can go ahead and get out of that and stop watching it. And again, I've created a video that you can see how that's being done, so you don't have to do anything with it in this video. Okay, so in our header, we have this. So I'm going to copy that and paste it in our footer. We're going to change this to footer. Actually, I could probably just do this, this, this. There we go. Okay, and then we also don't need the logo there. Okay, so now, and also centered in the footer. So I want in my nav, I don't want it to have a home. So let's do about, and I just want to have the about link, whatever other links that we add is going to be in the footer, so you can kind of see how they're differentiated between each other. Okay, so now let's go back to our home page. Oh, I need to add, I added the styles to the 404, but I did not add it to the home. So let's put in our partial there so it loads. Okay, all right, now we can get out of our header mustache and our footer mustache. We can also get out of our, say, 404. In our home, I don't think there's anything else that we need to do there. So let's go ahead and exit out of that one, as well as the Autoload htaccess to free up some space. Okay, so now we have the different pages that we want. So let's go ahead and create some other pages here. So I'm going to do case. We're just going to copy this and paste it here. And then again here. So let's do a contact page. So let's see, welcome to the contact page. And then let's do an about page. And need to change this to, and then welcome to the about page. Okay, so for right now, I'm just going to copy this twice. I'm going to rename one of them to about, rename the other one to contact. So now if we click on this about link, it shows us the about page information. So let's go to our nav and add in another page for the contact. And let's go ahead and drop this one on the footer as well. All right, so now we got a contact page, an about page, and a home page. Okay, so there's also some other things that you can do with it. So let me close out of these two, and I've already showed you how to do an array. So we're sending over this array here. Let's minimize that. So we're sending over this array here. Let's say if I wanted to add something like additional content, and inside of this, I want to have an array that I'm going to display as a list item. So let's say, let's do item 1, item 2, item 3. And again, you can pull all of this from a database. It's not going to, I mean, right now it's just hard-coded, but all of this can come from a database, and you can compile all of the information that you need to be displayed on this one page inside of this object, this data object that we're creating. And you'll actually be able to display whatever content you want inside of it. Okay, so I'm going to close the home page. So in our about page, we have this additional. So let's do, so we want to check and see if content dot additional, and then again we want to close it out. So if it has an additional, we want to loop through that additional. So if it has the additional, let's create a unordered list, and then for each item in the additional, which they're just labeled as such, so we don't have to do anything special with them. You can have it however you want to do it, but the way that you get just the keys that are being sent over is we're going to do an li. No, don't want to do an li yet. Yeah, we do. If it exists, we want to run where it just grabs all of the data from the array. So now we have item 1, item 2, item 3. If we go to another page, does not exist on another page. Why is this not centered? I just noticed that. Anyway, okay, so let's say on the contact page, we want to have a contact form. So let's come over here and we're going to add in a subfolder in our partials. So let's do new folders. We're going to do contact, and then inside of this, we're going to do form.mustache. So inside of this, instead of calling the footer, we would call contact/form. And if we go to the contact page now, we can say that our form will go there and it'll actually display. So let's build out this form. So let's do something real quick. So we're just going to do form action equals this. And once it gets put on the page, it acts as if it's an HTML that's on the page. So you can create a form action that does a specific thing whenever it's submitted. You can check it with JavaScript. You can do all kind of validation, authentication, and stuff like that. So there's a whole bunch of things that you can do with this. So instead of building out the entire form, I'm just going to pause the video, put one in real quick, because again, it's not really important. All right, so now we got the form added, and it's functioning. So if we go to the other files, you can see that you can change the content by either adding more data, or you can change the content of the page by adding things specifically to the Mustache template or creating a new partial. So there's a whole bunch of really cool things that you can do. I mean, you can edit it here to add in something specific for the home page, or you can create a new partial to add it, or you can pass it as part of the data that you're sending over here. And as long as you have your, like over here where you're looking to check to see if it's true or false, which essentially is what this does, checks to see if it's true or false. If it's false, it won't display any of this. If it's true, it'll display whatever you tell it to. So, but that's pretty much it. I went through the entire process of creating or adding Mustache to a project, creating a MVC that acts as the placeholder page for everything, registering your Mustache, implementing it as part of a class, adding htaccess so that you could actually have your page without the PHP and be able to navigate and display it all through the index, as well as how to use partials, how to set up your data, how to add in a style or JavaScript. So pretty much you can use this as a starter for your own project, and you can get as detailed as you want to with it. So this is a really cool way to get a website done really fast. And again, I've done this in PHP just because I haven't done a PHP tutorial in a while. But Mustache it's very versatile. It's used on a lot of different types of coding. So like I said, you can do it on Ruby. You can do it with just vanilla JavaScript. So it's a really cool, very functional, fluid way of doing things. I mean, there is some things that you're maybe going to run into, like for example, with this, let's say if you wanted something to match a number, you can't do something like if ID equals 1, because you wouldn't be able to close out the template itself, which would give you this error because it's missing the closing tag ID equals 1. So you can't really come in here and say that, you know, if ID equals this, or let's say like a user level equals this, display this content. You can't really do it like that. What you would have to do instead is, whenever you're gathering your data, you would come in here and say that if the admin user equals, or this user level equals this, add it to your data array that's coming through, and then display it whether or not it's true or false. So there is some caveats to using Mustache. You have to remember it is a separate system from your data. It is merely a way to display data in a very quick and efficient way. It is not a logical system whatsoever. I mean, the best you can do is if something is true or if something is false. There may be some other things that you can do with it, but for the most part, in my experience with it, it's kind of limited, where it's kind of expecting the data to already be compiled before it gets to the Mustache template, and then it just renders it. It's just a rendering template that's separate from your data, which makes it really easy to create websites like this. I've even used it to create an extremely detailed and large project, and it worked out very well. I mean, I had something that was coming from 2 different databases, and then it was also coming from, let's say, 7 or 8 different tables, and then one of those tables could have, 10,000 rows in it, and it handled it flawlessly. It does exactly what it's supposed to do, but whenever you're thinking about how you're going to consume your data, you have to be aware that it is not a logical system. It is a rendering system. So just come into it with that mindset, and you can create a lot of really big things or a lot of really small things out of it. But I think that's going to do it for this tutorial. I hope you learned something about Mustache to give you an extra option whenever you're looking to create kind of like a single page applications without having to use JavaScript, or if you want to, you can use JavaScript, but Mustache allows you to kind of fluidly create those rapidly. So yeah, just I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments or questions, leave me a comment. If you like this kind of video, or if you're interested in any of the other stuff I've done, like JavaScript validation for forms or CSS, yeah, if you're interested in anything else you've seen in this video that I kind of glossed over a little bit, I do have over 100 other videos that you can watch that cover all kinds of topics, from htaccess to JavaScript, CSS, PHP, WordPress, pretty much anything you could think of. So if you have not become a subscriber of this channel and you want to see more content like this, or you want to see content that I've already done, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and let me know that you like the content. But I think this will do it for this one. So I will talk to you later.